Off we go blasting off again. If you haven't had the time or motivation to read this year so far, there's still plenty of time left. Hell, the month isn't over, so how about a challenge? I'll tell you a couple of interesting recommendations, fun books you can read before January ends. You try to finish one. 30 pages per day would actually net you 300 pages in 10 days, and a full page is like 2 minutes, right? Yeah, up for it? I picked the following books looking to make you think. But nothing too complicated, it's all fiction but nothing by pension. The theme really is just books to kickstart the year in the right way, or maybe good picks for your book club. Without further ado, here are the top 10 books for January 2025. Number 10 is James by Percival Everett. Have you read Green Hills of Africa? It's a non-fiction book by Ernest Hemingway. He talks about the time he went to East Africa to look for elephants to shoot. I'm not recommending that one for a reason. I'm not gonna come out here and tell you to read about this psychotic motherfucker going to colonial Africa to wax poetic about how hunting a lion is similar to laying a woman. Well, in the 22nd page of that book, Hemingway says something that I agree with. Huckleberry Finn should have ended when Jim is separated from Huck. You know, when that one steamship sinks, they get separated by the fog and whatnot. If you stop reading right there, that is still the greatest American book. Percival Everett puts in the due diligence to deliver unto us Huckleberry Finn from Jim's perspective, and with proper reverence goes beyond being a pastiche. It is legit funny, it deserves the flowers it's getting, Barnes & Noble Book of the Year, Kirkus Nobel Prize and all. Number 9 is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K Lawin. I once had a conversation with my Aunt John about how cool it would be if they taught magic in school. Kind of like Hogwarts, you know, like I'm never gonna use algebra, IRL, but if they taught me how to draw a fireball, now that would be a useful skill. She replied with what I later found out was a quote from this book: "To light a candle is to cast a shadow, young falcon." She was a wild woman who has now become a semi-domesticated old lady. She ran away from home when she was 15. For years, she ravished the San Fernando Valley, leaving broken hearts and empty wallets in her wake. Or that's what my mom tells me. I think she related me talking about a magic school to Earthsea, having read this modern fairy tale / coming of age story, following the brash and arrogant Gad through his life as he becomes a man, as he faces rivals, dragons, his own shadow. I could see my aunt, not as a woman, but still a girl, wild as ever, sitting down to read this, not finishing it, and getting some dumb ideas of what she should go out and do, then coming back with a cast on her arm to finish reading it. Bright, the hawk's flight in the empty sky. Number 8 is Demon Copperheads by Barbara Kingsolver. There's no middle point for this one. It's either cliché and uninspired, or a brilliant piece of modern Americana. Which is funny because it is based off of David Copperfield, as in the book by Charles Dickens, not the guy. And yes, the book came out before the guy. It came out in 1850, the guy was born in the 1950s. I'm saying the book isn't about a magician from New Jersey. I was also disappointed. Yes. I say it's funny because Demon Copperhead is as American as David Copperfield is British. Besides that, they mirror each other a lot, actually. They are both born with a caul, you look up what that is. They both have evil stepfathers. They are both eventually taken in by a woman named Betsy. Give it a go even if you don't like Dickens. Barbara Kingsolver is great at finding beauty in crummy and depressing places, and this book is just full of them. Number 7 is Trust by Hernan Diaz. Split into 4 parts, this is one of those experimental books. It plays with the format is what I'm saying. First, you get a novella about a rich dude in the 20s. Then you get an unfinished autobiography from a rich dude in the 20s, unrelated to the first one, but that still mirrors the first part. Then you get a memoir from the same dude in the second part, and at the Onion score, You find a journal that puts the whole thing into perspective. I enjoy this sort of books personally, and this one is accessible enough that I feel comfortable recommending it without fear of you reading it and getting upset at me for wasting your time. Plus, you know I enjoy stories that make me feel like a scholar, and the mystery at the center of this one gives your scholarly work some purpose. Actually, I think the dark academia people might enjoy this one. It's about very wealthy people, and it's set in New York in the 20s for the most part. I mean, it's not antebellum Boston, but it's still pretty dark and academic. Number 6 is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I'm a bit hesitant about recommending an unfinished trilogy. Furthermore, this is one that will never be finished. We lost Octavia E. Butler before she could wrap them up. This also means that the end is rather tragic. Still, I believe this book is worth reading on the merits it does have. It's 2024, the apocalypse has happened, and then it happened again, and it continues happening. We follow Lauren, a young girl living in one of the walled cities. Lauren has something called hyperempathy syndrome, a condition that causes her to hallucinate feeling the pain, the happiness, and the sorrow of anyone she sees. I don't think you understand me though. She actually feels these things. Like, if she sees someone get hit in the balls, she feels it too. She can't turn it off either. A bunch of people have this crap because someone messed up an Alzheimer medicine in the mid-2000s. Imagine you have that, and your entire neighborhood burns down. Yeah? That happened to Lauren at the beginning of the book, and it just gets worse from there. But what if I told you this is a book about hope and the triumph of the human spirit? On the real, gone too soon. Rest in power, Mrs. Butler. Number 5 is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Burgess. This is one of those where I simply couldn't ignore the girth. Let me take you through a dramatization of my process. Holy hell, this Mama Jamma is 724 pages! No way it needs that many. I mean, even if it follows the Parambil family for 70 years, right? Who does this guy think he is? Garcia Marquez? Even Gabo only went for 400 pages. It opens with a 12-year-old marrying a 40-year-old guy. What the hell, man? Nah, this is bile. Who wanted this? Okay, so hear me out. I straight up don't recommend you read this one. But, and it's a big but, which I like, I cannot lie. There's an audiobook narrated by Dr. Abraham Burgess. Yes, the actual author. It's about 30 hours and it does it justice. Listen to it on your way to work. The book is legit a masterpiece as far as prose, structure, and style. I have read a lot of books in my time. This is the most technically impressive book that's come out in the century so far. We're a quarter of the way through, so that could change. Note that I said the most impressive, it's not my favorite. I will not read this thing again. I'm glad I did it once though. Number 4 is The Song of Elys by Madeline Miller. I have a bone to pick with some people surrounding and within the media analysis sphere. I keep hearing them bringing up the male gaze with a negative connotation. Well, I don't usually like to get political, usually. But in this case, I'd like to say that I don't agree with the general consensus. I like the male gaze. Some of my best friends are male gaze. I also think that everyone should be allowed, if they want to write about and tell stories about the male gaze, regardless of their own proclivities. The Song of Elys is a great example of a male gaze story. As long as you don't mind the anachronism, you should be able to enjoy it for the most part. Like, yeah, I get it, iron spears weren't used during the Bronze Age. Just suspend your disbelief for a second, dude, come on. A fair warning that might be positive or negative, depending on the kind of degenerate you are. There's a weird focus on feet in this book. Petrolkus, our protagonist this time around, describes Achilles' feet very often when talking about his power and grace in combat. I understand the thematic relevance with the whole Achilles heel and whatnot, but it's a bit much. Number 3 is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. It's almost as big as Covenant of Water. Listen man, I told you it was a challenge, okay? This is probably Neil Gaiman's best work too. You like Neil, we all do. Except for the people who were upset by the ending in this one. I normally like to avoid going into too much detail as if not to spoil a book, but in this case, you know what? Yes. This is more about the journey than it is about the destination anyways. Don't go into it expecting a happy ending in the conventional sense. Enjoy the world building, shadow traveling with Mr. Wednesday through America. They rob a bank at one point. That's fun. Number 2 is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Now this is a mean f***ing book. I mean this both symbolically and technically. The first time I went through Heart of Darkness, I wasn't able to finish it. Something about it was off-putting to me, but I couldn't quite articulate why. Later I realized that the structure was just off. Then later I learned that the book's structure isn't off, it's just French. English wasn't Joseph Conrad's first language, so naturally his cultural background influences the way he writes. The author's vernacular aside, the events in this book take place during King Leopold II's reign, specifically involving the Belgian occupation of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It depicts cruelty and brutality. Needless to say, I believe there is darkness we must all face. I understand that some people are very sensitive about these topics. To them I say, man up, don't be a pussy. Number 1 is The Rise We're Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. When discussing the great American authors, often a name is left out. I understand that as far as actual influence goes, and this is by the unfair nature of her circumstances too. But Zora Neale Hurston, as far as I'm concerned, you can take your Mark Twains and your Ernest Hemingways and your John Steinbecks and shove them all up. I want to argue that Zora Hurston, on merit, deserves to stand on that pedestal too. Just of how hard this book goes right here. Just listen to a small, out of context excerpt from this thing. All gods who receive homage are cruel. All gods dispense suffering without reason. Otherwise they would not be worshipped. Through indiscriminate suffering, men know fear, and fear is the most divine emotion. It is the stones for altars, and the beginning of wisdom. Half gods are worshipped with wine and flowers. Real gods require blood. The whole thing is written like that. It's crazy. With that, we wrap it up for today. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos. What are you reading right now? Tell me in the comments. And have a wonderful rest of your day.